felt good about how we competed tonight. You know, the NBA provides you times of the season where there's adversity, and you know, obviously with that Trey and JJ, you know, I thought our guys really competed, and obviously the game didn't finish on a high level for us, and but I don't necessarily feel like the score is indicative of how hard we played throughout portions of the game, and we got some great efforts.
And then when you get to that last, 5-6 minutes, I think we kind of stopped executing. We start trying to call certain things, and I think our best was when we was able to just play, move the ball a lot, get good looks. We start taking tougher shots and turning the ball over, and that don't help. And then obviously them shooting 37 free throws doesn't help at all.
Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce was back at it again for another Bleav in the Hawks podcast. We have a lot to discuss today on the pod right now. Hawks coming off their third straight loss to the and losing to the 76ers last night. A tough loss for this team. Now 9-12 on the season. Adversity has struck this team with a tough stretch of games coming up. Jalen Johnson still out for a couple more weeks. Trae Young was out of the Sixers game with an illness, so I would think he'd be back for the next game. Hopefully it's not anything that's going to take him multiple days. They don't play again till Monday, so he at least has the weekend to get himself right. So we got to talk about the state of this team right now. And ultimately, the Hawks have tried. I mean, the one thing about this team is they put effort. You can't say they don't. But I think, you see more of the flaws of this roster that people have pointed out at times this year, that I've pointed out at times this year in a game like this against the 76ers, and just a lot of people are asking questions. A lot of people are questioning Quinn. A lot of people are questioning, like the moves obviously we made because of the fact that the roster does have these limitations, which is a fair criticism. People questioning DeJounte, people questioning, just everything, like about what this team is, what we should have did, everything under the sun. So we're going to get into all that today on the podcast. So like I say, guys, appreciate you guys tuning into the pod. We're going to talk about that all today. Also, if you're listening to me on YouTube, obviously you can see my social at the bottom of the screen, Bryce_2K. Go ahead and shoot me a follow there. Also subscribe and like for the channel and this video. So I definitely appreciate all the love and support. Same thing for audio. If you want to go ahead, show love to the podcast, leave a review, leave a rating on the pod. Anything helps to help grow this podcast and try to make it the #1 podcast in the Atlanta Hawks community. So I appreciate all you guys, like I said, tuning in once again and everything under the sun. So, like I said, Hawks lost to the Sixers last night in a game where, they competed. I mean, they competed last night, but it just wasn't enough, especially in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter, realistically, is where I feel like the Hawks, that's been the difference between them being a better team and then the team they are now record-wise. And what I mean by that is like, you got to like look at it like this. I said that I feel like in the fourth quarters that this team, they've struggled. The biggest thing they've struggled to do is execute in fourth quarters. They've struggled to get stops. And then even though they're such a great scoring team average-wise, it seems like when the moments matter most, they're not able to get consistent offense unless it's from a guy like Trae, if he's hot or something like that. And I think that's a big issue. If you look at the Brooklyn Nets game, I mean, they were in that game. Trae had hit that big three, and then what lost them that game? The fact that the Nets ran a great play, were able to basically cut out the back, boom, wide open layup. Communication could have been better. Multiple guys could have did things better on that play, but they didn't. And that was the difference between winning and losing the game. Sixers game was close, 2-point game, tie game at times, and then now it ends an 11-point game, which happened the first time, even with Trae and Jalen was in the lineup that went against the Sixers. They were close and then just fell apart. And there's multiple things you can look at. I mean, you look at this team and you think, you're 9-12 right now. Like I said, you still have Denver coming up. You got Toronto back-to-back. You got Cleveland coming up. All those teams are, decent teams. Like I mean, obviously Denver's the best team in that stretch, but you basically, you're not going to have any cupcake games, as they say, for you to win so you can get yourself back on track. If you're going to get yourself back on track, you've got to beat some legitimate teams, some good teams along the way. And I don't think the Hawks are going to make any moves or anything like that until next month, which is when it gets close to the trade deadline anyway. Now, I could be surprised. You never know what could happen. Something could, Landry could be, or whoever could just be like, make a move now. You never know in the NBA. But I don't think any help's going to necessarily come till that point too. But overall, I think that there are some things that just makes this team they're just not fun. I mean, I'm seeing it a lot. Like, people are just like, the team's not fun, and I've seen that multiple times over the last few years. Because obviously that Eastern Conference Finals team, that was a fun team. I think everybody really enjoyed watching them play. Like there's teams in the league now that are fun to watch but not good. And we know who those teams are. Like, oh, they're not good, but they're very fun to watch. And you have some teams think about the Spurs for all those years. They weren't necessarily a fun team to watch. If you were just a lover of pure basketball, it was fun for you. But if you wanted all the highlight plays and everything, the Spurs weren't your cup of tea. But they won. And if you win at the end of the day as a fan, you're probably like, hey, you winning. I can't complain too much. So the Hawks, it's kind of crazy to say a team with top 5 in fast break, top 5 in scoring, top 5 in pace isn't a fun team. But I think that's indicative of how this season has felt for a lot of fans. I think that's indicative of how the season has came off, because I think fans have had higher expectations than what we've seen so far. And us not reaching and achieving those expectations are creating that ripple effect in the fan base that's making people be like, I don't like this. I don't want to watch these games, because it feels like we can never blow anybody out. First of all, it feels like we could never blow anybody out. It's always competitive against whoever, no matter if it's a bad team, really good team, whatever. It always feels like there's always a lot of mistakes made on the court that you're just like, what? Like, this is stupid. IQ's not there. We cost us a game. Like, oh my God. People like, I don't like watching DeAndre Hunter play. I don't like watching Capella play. Things like that. Like, I don't like watching particular players. Like, I don't like watching how they operate. And one of the big things too that came out of last night's game, and this is something I've observed across the season. The reason why I don't make any judgments so fast is I like to see how the season plays out. We're past the first quarter of the season now, so I can start to have more of an opinion on what I've seen, and I can give that to you guys. And I mean, big thing I think is that the Hawks sorely need more shot makers. And the thing is like, Trey's a shot maker. Maybe you consider Bogey a shot maker too. But outside of that, I mean, DeJounte has his moments. If he has his mid-range going and stuff, and then I can get his 3 going, then he becomes a shot maker. But that's not him on any given game basis. For the most part, I feel like sometimes. I mean, Bay can make shots, but I don't know if I consider him a shot maker. And I think in the fourth quarter of the Sixers game, you kind of saw that. They didn't really have any shot makers. The Sixers ramped up the intensity and pressure defensively, and they couldn't get any good possession. The quality of possessions in that fourth quarter was not good. They took care of the ball great the first 3 quarters, and then they turned it over 8-9 times in the fourth quarter. So, I think that is again, indicative of what this season has been like for this team. It's been tough to maintain that type of momentum that they need to maintain for them to be successful. When you're a 500 team like this, the problem is you have a thin margin. The Hawks have a thin margin when they play teams. They're not a team that can make all these mistakes and still beat you. They're not that good of a team who could not play their best but still be able to handle you. They have to play a certain way for them to win these games. And so they have a very thin margin of error. And I feel like that shows itself in these fourth quarters. Or when they would always start games trailing by 10 points and they're having to fight back every time. Those are examples of listen, you're a 500 team because you can't establish something consistent. And obviously habits are still being developed and everything under the sun and whatever. Because obviously this team's developed bad habits over the last couple of years and etc. But realistically, that is the difference between you being 9-12 and 12-9 is habits. And It's habits, and it's belief in what you can do, and belief in what you want to be. And just executing down the stretch. Because if you can't execute, it pretty much fucks you up. Excuse my language. Gotta put this as explicit. But yeah, like it makes things tough. Like you start to lose these games. Like if you think about the last 2 games, they played Brooklyn. I mean, Brooklyn, both of those games came down to the last possessions. Like Brooklyn and the Nets, I think are like, honestly, I think they're mirror images of each other to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like they clearly have shown you they're pretty much equal for the most part, both of those teams. Like wherever Brooklyn is where the Hawks are. And that's why you get games that go right down to the wire. But the difference in this game was that the Hawks didn't make enough plays late in the first game, in the first matchup. And the second matchup, Hawks did not make enough plays. Brooklyn made enough plays down the stretch, which helped them win the game. Because you still had Trey had 30, Mikal Bridges had 32, so they both were still with the thing. Which just the difference is you got guys like Spencer Dinwiddie who struggled for the entire game, who was 1 of 10 up to that midpoint in the fourth quarter, and then he was able to get a few baskets in that game to get it. And everybody's talked about the play with DeAndre Hunter, where DeAndre Hunter basically let him get past him, which gave him a free release because he was able to keep up with him. Which we can get more into DeAndre Hunter here in a minute, but you know, people are just like circling that play as like, this is what's wrong with this team. This is why Hunter needs to go. This is why we're not going to be the team we want to be. You know, a lot of people blame, like I said, Tony Wrestler for his like the Kevin Huerter trade. Every time this happens, they're going to blame for trading Kevin Huerter. I have always said that I don't feel like I've always said this, that if Nate McMillan was still here, Kevin Huerter would not be the player you think you see in the Sacramento because he just wouldn't. Nate McMillan doesn't know how to maximize talent. So in a way, it's like if he's under Quinn, I would feel better about it. I mean, Bogey's playing fantastic under Quinn, so he's benefited from him coming in and being the coach and the staff. But I think it's one of those things where you look at this team and they just, I know a lot of people were mad about them staying put really this offseason outside of Trey and JC, and a lot of people, oh, we need JC now. And I'm like, well, if you had JC, Jalen would be what he was. But I've also said too that I think last year, if you think about it, you had John Collins and Clint Capella, and then when you went to your bench, you could go Jalen, you could go Bay, or you could go Okongwu. You had 3 guys who could relatively come in for any of those guys if someone got hurt, foul trouble. This year, you don't have that depth. You don't have those guys you can trust to come in like that. Like, think about it. You lose Jalen Johnson. Now Bay's your 4. You don't really have a 4 after him. You have no true 4. You have to put Hunter at the 4. Realistically, if Capella went down, you sent Bruno to College Park. I mean, you can call him up whenever, but I mean, he's your backup center after that. And he hasn't even gotten PT with the issues in the front court just to see what he can do out there in the rotation. Your front court depth is lacking. It's very and this team is very dependent on their top 8 when they're healthy, which I think they need to rely more, or at least be able to give roles to guys that are 9 and 10. I know Quinn ran a 9-man rotation last year. I think he should do that again this year. I mean, he tries to, but he gives that 9th guy like 5 minutes maybe at night, depending on what the matchup is and how that person is playing. And then that's why it's a rotation between Wesley Matthews, AJ Griffin, or Garrison Matthews, which that also is a topic of discussion too. So, and I think guards, you have a lot of guards, but you also feel like, man, are we getting enough from who we need? Because realistically, in today's NBA, I mean, you got to have great wing play. And, I think everybody has their opinion on DeAndre Hunter. And I think DeAndre Hunter is a fine player. I do. I really do. But he isn't the type of wing that this team needs, which is why Pascal Siakam was mentioned in Trade Talks. Because Pascal upgrades you offensively and defensively and gives you more juice. The thing about DeAndre Hunter is he had 24 last night, and he led the team in scoring, I believe. But even with that, how impactful did that 24 points feel to you? Did you feel like man, like Andre, man, like he is really giving us some juice that we need tonight to really offset losing Trae Young? Or did you just feel like, okay, Trae's just having a good game offensively? There's a difference in the two. Siakam would give you more juice. And you would assume plays like that game against the Nets when Spencer did when he got past him wouldn't happen as easily, at least. Because, you know, guys are shot makers in this league. So, you know, I think that Hunter, technically numbers-wise, Hunter is playing better than he's played the last couple of seasons. But at the same time, he still makes those mistakes. The lazy turnovers, the losing of handling, still has a bit of a weak handle at times. Just, you know, it's like he is in his mistakes happen in very inopportune times. So when you have that, it just feels like it offsets what he does well. And it feels like what he does well isn't well enough to really make you feel like it's okay. You know? And I think that's the big issue with Hunter in a lot of people's eyes. Just overall, because, you know, you want more from that position. I think like this team, like that's why Jalen's been such a you know, a great thing for this team. Because he kind of gives you juice. He and Trae are like the only two players in this team who really give you juice on this team. And if you know ball, you know what I'm talking about. They give you juice. Like they really feel like, oh, they're making an impact on this game. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, DeJounte has his moments. And Bogey has his moments. Bogey's just consistent. He's consistently giving you what you need every night from him, which is why I love him. You know, that's why people were talking about we should have traded Bogey, but like, I just remember Kevin Huerter was mad and consistent. He would go games, stretches, 10 games of just being complete mid. Or at least Bogey, for the most part, he's pretty much giving you good games every game now, especially now after since that knee surgery from last year. He seems to be more healthy, played well in FIFA. He's bringing it into the season, still playing well now. So, you know, he's done what he's needed to do. And like Bay's played pretty decent too the last few games. He's stepped up, but he obviously has his issues defensively. That's where his flaws are. He's an offensive guy, not much of a defensive plus. You have those guys in your roster. It's part of it. But yeah. So right now, the state of this team is not in the best place. I mean, you could lose. You're probably projected to lose Monday against the Nuggets. That'll drop you to 9-13. You're 4 games under 500. Still got the Raptors, which is not an easy game. I mean, obviously you need to win those games, but you know that could still be L's. And then you got Cleveland, who is a decent team. So you don't really have any gimmies coming up, realistically. I mean, if we look at the schedule for them coming up, the next quote unquote gimme game is right after the Cleveland game, which is Monday, December 18th against the Pistons. But then the next two after that are Rockets and Heat. You know, so you're not playing an easy schedule right now. And yet you're not playing your best basketball either. And that's not a good recipe for success for this team. And it'll be interesting to see if the losing continues, what stories get leaked, what else comes out, and I don't think at all it's one of those things with Nate where like people have issues in the locker room. I don't think it's that at all. We're probably going to just be looking at like people are obviously probably start up Trae rumors again. Trae looking to get traded. Trae looking to leave. Trae looking to eye another place to go to play basketball. That will probably come back up again. So we're gonna have to get ready for that. What else probably would come up? Like, shoot. I mean, maybe people talk about maybe DeJounte could be back on the trading block. I mean, because it really just depends on what this front office would want to do. I mean, I feel like this front office feels like they can't go into a full-scale rebuild because of Trae. Because if you do that, then he's going to ask out. So, and you don't want to lose him. Like you really feel like we can't go back to being a bottom-dwelling team intentionally right now. You know, it feels like we have to try to be competitive. So, and I don't see them getting off of Trae. So they're just going to think, okay, how can we retool this team to make it more competitive? DeJounte is a good trade asset. That could be something you do. with AJ Griffin not getting many minutes and seeming like he's in the doghouse, he'll probably be someone that you'll probably be dangled in a trade. I mean, that's just how that's going to be. I mean, your best package right now could probably be Hunter and AJ. You're getting Hunter and you're getting a young guard because, most teams want young players in these trades, and you're getting a young guard in AJ, and it depends on obviously how the team feels about AJ and their potential on their squad. So that is your two main trade pieces right there. And then obviously Clint Capella, I always feel like Clint will be in another trade, unless he's in a 3-team, 4-team trade, because people are just feeling like we're not getting the best from that position either, which could be hindering Onyeka Okongwu, or Onyeka Okongwu also has been very inconsistent himself. So, like I said, it's kind of a mixed bag of just different things. You can't really narrow it down to one thing and say this is that thing that's holding this team back. So I think that's been what has been the toughest part of this entire process for this team and for this organization. That the play we've seen recently has just not been good. It's not been good at all. I know some people think I work for the team and I'm not mean or anything, but I'm a guy who believes in evaluation, who knows processes. I've seen this team be worse and then bounce back and make the playoffs. So, I mean, and y'all have seen it too if you've been Hawks fans. I mean, you can't say you haven't. You've seen it. I mean, if you think about it, yeah, they're 9-12 right now. They've lost 3 in a row. Of course, you're going to sit there and be like, yeah, this team ain't it. We need to blow this team up. This team sucks. We're done. We're finished. I mean, that's natural. You're not seeing anything that's making you feel better. Same thing happened in the East Conference Finals year. Into that All-Star break, weren't we like 5 games under 500? Like we were like 5-6 games under 500. I'm sure everybody was like, "Yep, season's over. We're done. We're finished. We're just trying to get to the lottery." And then they made the East Conference Finals. So you really never know if this team can turn around, and that's the reason why I won't say the season is over, because you don't know. You think you know, but you don't know. All you can do is make your guess, make your assumption, say what you think is going to happen, and then we let it play out. That's just how stuff goes. There are multiple teams in this league who have started off bad and then came back and were good later. Maybe that's the Hawks. We have no idea. But at the same time, we also do see the flaws. We also do see the limitations. We also do see the issues that are on this team. And so that is what makes us feel like, all right, yeah, I don't see that happening. And all that's fair. All of that is fair. So, I think that when you break down this team, I mean, right now you're going through adversity. A lot of teams go through adversity. Sometimes teams go through these stretches where they're not playing well at all. It just seems like they're out of sorts. It just seems like things aren't working. How do you respond to adversity? This team, I feel like, has been actually a very resilient team in the last 3 years. I mean, they have fought in multiple seasons to either make play-in, make playoffs, get into the playoffs, just get themselves in a position to at least have a shot. And we'll see now under a Quinn Snyder coach team, how do they respond to adversity? I mean, if you look at the Sixers game, they came out, they played with great effort, they didn't turn the ball over. So clearly this team isn't quitting because, this team is not just saying, screw this, we're done. Like, they're not doing that. They're playing hard. They're just not able to get over that hump. They're not executing. They're not doing those things that are needed in these games to be able to take that next step for them. So obviously, get Trey back, hopefully Monday for Denver. Like I said, Jalen's still a couple of weeks away, I think. So we probably won't know. He'll be back till maybe mid-December, towards the end of December, maybe. And then, we'll see how this team gets reevaluated in that process. But overall, I mean, I think it's been really tough to as a Hawks fan, and for every Hawks fan that's watching, I understand. Like, it's not easy. Like, it's funny because I became a fan in 2007 is when I started really watching basketball. And I remember watching the Hawks. It was post-trade deadline Mike Bibby trade, I think, when they made the wild card and pushed Boston to 7. And that made me a fan of this team because they were resilient. They fought. And so I've always looked at the Hawks as this scrappy, resilient team. And then we went to the playoffs of 8, 9 years in a row. Even though we weren't winning championships or competing for them, we went to the playoffs. You knew every year you had a decent product. Then you got to the years where Bud took you to the Eastern Conference Finals and you had your peak year. Then you had your down years and you had those bad years. You had the terrible rosters and you had the rebuilding process that got you Trae Young. So I've been through the ups and downs of this team, and I'm sure there's fans who are much older than me who have been there since the 90s with Dominique and all them and those squads. And when obviously the 90s was dominated by Jordan in the East, but I'm sure some people felt like at that time, hey, if the Hawks didn't have to deal with Jordan or other particular situations, they may have been able to get to the finals because they had some really talented teams. But throughout, like I said, my history is like I've always viewed the Hawks as a very scrappy team, and at least I just missed the Speedy Claxton era. Good thing for that. Hawks fans know Speedy Claxton. Yeah. So I mean, that's really the biggest thing, realistically, from this team that you got to see about. I mean, you're faced with it. Your season could very much go down if you continue to build or continue this losing streak, which could lead to changes. Now, I don't think like Quinn or anybody is going to be I don't think that's the case. I think the front office is going to view this as like it's the roster now. We feel like the coach is there. It's just we maybe didn't give the coach the best roster to work with to help him be successful as the coach. So that would probably be your next move. And obviously, like you would say, probably Hunter. You would think maybe Capella as well would be your two main people you move. And then depending on how they feel, I mean, I don't know, maybe DeJounte. I don't think that would be a move that would happen during the season. I think that's more of a move that if you wanted to make as the season didn't end well, maybe that's like after the season you do. And right now, I think Hunter and Clint are the two main trade candidates. And then probably AJ for now, just because I feel like from a roster construction standpoint, he's just not going to be given the opportunity he needs here to grow as a player. And that's sometimes just how it is. Like people just want to force him into the lineup, but it's like you're going to take out your second best, third best player to give him time to make mistakes. Jalen was different because they needed Jalen. Like they needed him. like he is a need. AJ's in a need. So it's like, they're not going to force him into the lineup. And Jalen also obviously has showed us that he has a very high ceiling, a almost star-like ceiling. So, I think Wesley has done well for when he has played. I mean, the problem is that he's not a high-volume shot taker. He's going to maybe put up a couple of shots a game, and he's just going to play some solid defense. Patty Mills played well. I mean, he's a veteran. He knows how to play the game, regardless of his age. And he played well, and he helped last night against the Sixers. So, I think overall, you got some good contributors. You got some good things happening from those guys. But overall, I just think that a lot of the issues kind of rain down that have been issues throughout the entire year. Lack of wing play, lack of rebounding, lack of size at times. And just that's affected you in these games. And then just lack of execution down the fourth quarter has not been fantastic either. And I think that also has affected things too. So, it's been, like I said, tough to watch. It's been tough to evaluate. It's been tough to just get a gauge on what's going on. But it's what the team is right now. And right now, the team is not a good team. You're indicative of what your record is. And right now, the Hawks are not good. They're not good right now. So they got to do some soul searching. Like I said, this team's not going to quit. I could see that right now. They're not a team that's going to quit. They're not a team that's going to give up. They fight, which is something I can always commend. It's just if the effort, fighting through adversity, and then trying to take that next step. So I know right now they're not a fun team to watch. I know a lot of people are very disencouraged, and I completely understand it. Even through thick and thin, I've watched this team, so I'm sticking on, and we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see how they respond Monday against Denver. But I think it's back in Atlanta, so we'll have to see if this team can get back on track and try to just because you're gonna need one of those winning streaks to get you back where you need to go. So hopefully the Hawks are gonna be able to get that and get themselves back, like I said, where they need to be. Because, I mean, DeJounte said it for the season. They didn't want to be a 4th seed. And right now, you were looking like playing at best. So if you want to change that, you still have 3/4 of the season left to change it. There's plenty of time, but you got to start putting some wins together. You got to start playing a better brand of basketball. And we'll see, like I said, if changes will be made if this slide continues for the Atlanta Hawks. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Bleav on Hawks podcast for the Bleav Network. Like I said, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Bryce_2K. Don't forget to subscribe if you're listening on YouTube or like the video. Also through audio rating or review. I appreciate you guys. Let me be part of your day. Everything under the sun. So we're gonna hope for the best. Obviously, we'll try to be back next week after the Denver game and just talk about our Hawks and see where we are at that point in the process. So that's all I got for you guys. It's boy Bryce Lewis. See you next time.